Pro Day workout is just a few minutes away, so Mark Schwartz is with Todd Mcsay in Laramie, Wyoming. Fellas, take it away.
Jack, this is a great year to be a top college quarterback. Josh Allen is certainly one, and this is his day here in Laramie, Wyoming, along with Todd Mcsay. And, you know, Todd, there are 17 NFL teams represented at this. We saw Hugh Jackson, part of a large Cleveland Browns delegation. There are 8 in his group. Pat Shurmur is here representing the Giants. They already have a great chemistry with Josh Allen. There are 5 in that group. The Jets are here in strength. The Denver Broncos are here, and even the Seattle Seahawks, who don't apparently need a quarterback.
But you never know.
But you never know. What do you make of the difference between this atmosphere and the one you were seeing 48 hours ago in Southern California with Sam Darnold?
Well, there were more NFL people in Southern California because there were more prospects. You know, you're talking about a running back that could be a second-round pick in Jones. You have 2 defensive front 7 guys for USC that could be in the second day of the draft. So there were more individuals, but you see the teams that really know that they're focusing on these quarterbacks at the top are well represented as you just look through, and we're seeing Josh. According to the script that Jordan Palmer gave me, he's going to throw 55 passes today. We all know about his arm strength. I want to see touch and ball placement. Those are the 2 things that are inconsistent when I study the tape, and I want to see just naturally, with no defenders, no pads on, I get it, but just naturally comparing him to Darnold just 48 hours ago. Darnold basically put the ball where you ideally would want to put it on about 85–90% of his throws in that workout, and it was pouring rain for the second half of that workout. So we're indoors today, obviously no elements to deal with. He needs to throw the ball accurately all day today.
Now, when you watch him, what about his fundamentals stand out to you as needing to be corrected at the NFL level?
I think a lot of his issues I know they came when he just got sloppy with his footwork. When you're long levered like this, it's easier for things to go awry. And when you're constantly under pressure, which he was this past year, you're now getting yourself into body angles. What you have to do as a quarterback, you see Aaron Rodgers, I think, is as good as anyone, where even though he's moving and maneuvering in the pocket and extending plays, he's always ready to pull the trigger. And by that, I mean the base is always underneath him. So hands are on the ball, base underneath, and he's in a throwing position, a really fundamentally sound position. With Allen, that wasn't always the case. And so some of his throws are off because his feet aren't right. Now, when his feet are right, he can be a very accurate passer. And so, again, there's no defenders chasing him down here today, but Jordan Palmer has been working with him and helped develop the script, is going to try to simulate as much of that as he can by moving him around and showing how much he's worked on that footwork in the base.
He does have the ability at 6'5", 233 pounds, though, to extend plays, and that really stands out for NFL scouts.
He does, and he's not quite as mobile as Carson Wentz, who's basically the same exact size coming out of college and played in the same exact system under Craig Bowl and their staff. But I think he is pretty close. He's not far off, and so to have a guy that this size be able to move the way he's able to move and extend plays, and then obviously the arm strength on top of it. But as you see there, these are throws you really need to hit. You really need to be on, and we're going to see if he responds, and that's perfect. I mean, that throw is a perfect example of where you want the ball placed, and you want to see the consistency out of him in all of these throws.
Now, his ball is a very high velocity ball. It's not that easy to catch.
No, and that's why the touch is so important. And I thought it was really interesting watching him at the Senior Bowl. Mark, the whole week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice, and then in the game, it was very clear that they were coaching him, the Denver Broncos staff, and working with him diligently on touch. You don't need to. It doesn't need to be your 100-mile-an-hour fastball on a skinny post or on a slim crosser. You need to allow your receivers A, to catch the ball, and B, run after the catch. And he was getting better and better as the days went on at the Senior Bowl there, just focusing on taking a little bit off. It doesn't have to be so hard, and you can see almost the light come on with him in that regard.
The Broncos are interested. Gary Kubiak is representing them here today. They do potentially need a quarterback after Case Keenum, who might be a stopgap for them. But, you know, one thing that Craig Bohl told us about Allen is that, you know, even in a workout where he's supposed to throw a bootleg to the fullback, he's looking to throw a back shoulder 70-yard throw into the end zone. And when Bohl said to him, Josh, what are you doing? He says, well, Favre says touchdowns first. He's all about Brett Favre in his own mind.
He is, and it's like most of us, our greatest strength can be our fatal flaw. So, you know, when you watch Josh, he has that mentality, and Johnny Manziel had that mentality, and Baker Mayfield, coming out of Oklahoma, has that mentality at times.
Whoa!
Nice throw and real nice catch. That's Travis Wilson. Remember the old Utah quarterback,
Sure.
4-year starter at Utah, transitioned to tight end, converted in the NFL, was on the Rams roster. He's actually a free agent now. Worked out with Sam Darnold 2 days ago and flew over here and is getting exposure in front of all these NFL teams.
For a deep ball, that ball was really well placed. Here's another one.
Perfect.
So he can drop it in there real nicely with touch.
He does, and the touch hasn't been a big issue down the field. It's more of the underneath stuff where he's got to learn when. But you see there when he's on and when his feet are right, that's what I mean. Listen, the Cleveland Browns haven't ruled him out at number 1. And there's talk about the Buffalo Bills packaging picks. They have 5 picks in the top 65 overall, packaging picks to go move up potentially to get this guy. And that if he gets to the Jets at 3, he's not going to get past the Jets at 3. So, listen, I see the flaws just like everybody else sees the flaws. There's inconsistency with the accuracy, and there are times where he needs to dial it back in terms of decision making. But God only makes a few of these. I mean, he has skills that... He has an arm like we haven't really seen probably since you go back to like Roethlisberger, Stafford. He's in that elite category in terms of arm strength, the size and the mobility that he has. He's a really good competitor. And a thing that stood out talking to Jordan Palmer, you and I both mentioned it to him with the New York teams. This guy grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, went to a small high school, went to Reedley Community College for a year, comes over to Wyoming. He's never really been on a big stage. And Jordan said that's been the thing that has surprised him the most, is that he's just as much ready to handle something like that as a Sam Darnold, who's been dealing with the LA media the past couple of years as the USC starter. So that to me was interesting.
And that's because the kid, according to his coaches and people that know him, has no pretenses. He's just truthful. He's true to himself and his value system. Grew up in a cantaloupe, cotton and grain farm near Fresno, and the Big Apple doesn't scare Josh Allen. Well, we'll watch Josh Allen's pro day as it continues here. So far, so good for him. Now back to the studios.
There ain't nothing wrong with growing up on a farm. We'll send it back out to Todd and Mark here shortly. They'll have the Wyoming head football coach when we do. Ryan Clark, I want to start with this because we were talking about Jordan Palmer. What an incredible gig he's sort of carved out for himself.
Absolutely. It was smooth, wasn't it?
Right here. So you have Sam Darnold. He put together the script for that one on Wednesday, puts together for this one for today. How many similarities, like how can we compare these two sort of side by side?
I think that's really good. I mean, when you look at pro days, there isn't much that you expect that you can evaluate during. You know what these guys are capable of physically, but now you get to watch 2 of the top prospects basically do the exact same thing back to back, and you don't get that in the game. Josh Allen will never get to throw to USC's receiving core, have USC's running backs. Sam Darnold won't be put in positions against Power 5 teams where he's playing with inferior talent. But what you can see from this is Jordan Palmer, the same coach, trying to teach the same things, a very similar script, and compare those 2 things side by side. Obviously, Sam Darnold had to deal with the elements, but I think this is a new piece of what you can do in comparing these quarterbacks, and Jordan Palmer gets to be the star of probably 2 of the top 5 picks in the NFL draft this year.
Dan, what are you hearing people want to see today?
Yeah, again, with Josh Allen, coming off of Sam Darnold's pro day, and a lot of the same people are there, you know, that they go from Southern California to Wyoming while you're out west. You heard about Darnold was he showed off anticipation and timing with his throws. And I think that those kinds of nuanced aspects of quarterback play are what you're looking for here. Everyone's going to look good at their pro day. I mean, the exceptions are ones that stand out. We remember Teddy Bridgewater had a bad pro day, and that supposedly dropped him in the draft, right? So it's designed for you to look good. And to Ryan's point, I'm sure that Jordan Palmer, knowing both of these guys, is going to design a workout that plays to Josh Allen's strengths, as much as I'm sure he did with Sam Darnold. So Everybody, you can watch him throw, and I mean, I'm not a scout. We're not sitting here. We're not scouts. You can see how easy it is for him to throw the ball, how effortless it looks for him to throw the ball and to throw it, you know, with pretty good zip. So that's not what people there want to see. They want to see the accuracy. They want to see, again, the anticipation, the timing, and the footwork, and all those things that go into being a successful NFL quarterback. This is a player. No one's going to take him and start him week 1 in September. This is a player you take thinking about what he can ultimately be due to those impressive physical traits. And I think that's what people are going to want to see, what kind of progress he's making in terms of translating those physical traits into successful professional quarterback play.
I think one of the most compelling parts about Josh Allen during this pre-draft process, what I call the golden rule of scouting as it was taught to me, is that, remember, we draft traits, we don't draft production. You look over the past 2 years, Josh Allen's completion percentage hovered just north of 55%, as Todd Mcsay alluded to earlier on this year. He had just one game this past season with more than 248 passing yards. He did not have these, wow, blow-you-away numbers. And there was some curious decision-making. At the end of the day, though, NFL teams aren't going to look back and say he had X number of touchdown passes or X number of interceptions. They're going to evaluate the traits involved with that. With the touchdowns, was it good accuracy? With the interceptions, was it poor decision-making? And the traits that Josh Allen presents, from a physical standpoint, they're obvious, even when he doesn't have pads. 6'3", 230 pounds, all of it. We talk about the arm strength. I mean, the ball was flying out of his hand right now.
That's unbelievable to watch. It really is.
And it's effortless.
Yeah, it really is.
The question is, though, the traits that you saw on the field that led to some of those interceptions. Was it poor decision-making? Is that fixable? Was it because he was playing under duress? Was it because he felt like he didn't have the same level of skill guys from 2017 as he did in 2016? He's a fascinating guy in that way. In some ways, your perception of Josh Allen might be just how much you value the statistical raw data versus how much you are willing to look past some of that. Because, again, Ryan, throwing on air, throwing inside, no pads, it's clear. The kid's got a cannon of an arm that can put the ball where he wants to put it.
And I know this is a name many of you may or may not know, but Josh Booty. Josh Booty, when Peyton Manning came out of high school, both Josh Booty and Peyton Manning were 1 and 2. People were trying to figure out who was going to be the best quarterback of the two. Josh Booty is a top 10 baseball draft pick. He goes to play ball, comes back to LSU. He's throwing around before practice. I'd never seen a ball prettier. I still have not seen someone throw a prettier ball than Josh Booty. 7-on-7, he was absolutely amazing. I'm excited all of fall camp. People got to running in front of him and running at him, and he threw the ball to the other team on a very consistent basis. So what I'm saying
all of a sudden the last name started to make a little more sense.
So what I'm saying is this. When we watch Josh Allen's pro day, I expect to see these things because he has that type of talent. I expect accuracy in this position. I expect him to be able to drive the ball down the field. What you have to do is go back to the film and do some of those things Phil just mentioned. Why are these things happening? Have him sit in front of you and tell you what he was thinking. If he loves Brett Favre in that way, he thinks, maybe, you know what? I felt like I could make that throw. And on a team with the type of players I had, I felt like I had to do that. Those are things you have to know if you want to draft Josh Allen.
But you put him in a game and somebody's throwing curveballs and sliders, he couldn't translate that. So again, this is a player in Josh Allen. He's going to have to get with a good coaching staff. This was mentioned at the top. I think Mcsay was talking about it right off the top of the show. You have to put him with someone who can develop him. The player he is right now is not going to be a successful player in the NFL. You have to develop him into one. And obviously he's got all the physical ability. There's a laser that scared the heck out of that camera person on the sideline. But you got to get him in. I remember when
Who is that team then?
Right. When Patrick Mahomes got drafted last year, everybody went, "Wow, that's fantastic. He's with Andy Reid. He's in Kansas City. That'll develop." So you're going to be looking for a team like that. And at the top of this draft, you know, who is that? Is it Pat Shurmur with the New York Giants?
Absolutely.
Is it Jeremy Bates with the New York Jets? Is it Hugh Jackson and his crew in Cleveland?
I think it's the team that's not yet at the top of the draft, but has the draft capital in the Buffalo Bills to get up there. They're obviously currently picking 12th and 21st in the first round with that extra pick they initially acquired from the Chiefs in that Patrick Mahomes trade. They just signed A.J. McCarron to a 2-year deal, sort of effectively breaks down to a 1-year deal. A.J. McCarron, no great shakes as a long-term starter, but he's a bridge quarterback, right? You sign him to be a bridge quarterback. Buffalo seems to check off a lot of the boxes, what we're talking about in terms of a fit. One thing I add about this is I know we get enamored by these pro days, and Josh Allen has been impressive so far. As you guys were just saying, it's not just when you have the pads on and when you're playing against defense. It's pocket. It's the ability to operate inside of a pocket, because as much as we talk about guys that are wizards like Carson Wentz and Russell Wilson get outside of the pocket, it's also what you can do inside of the pocket. You have to be able to win from within there as well.
That is exactly right. We'll send out to Todd Mcsay and Mark Schwartz with Wyoming head coach Craig Bull. Fellas?
All right, Jack. Josh Allen showing us all of his toolkit today, and following Jordan Palmer's script here at his pro day. And one of the people watching with intensity, maybe a little nervous intensity, is his head coach Craig Bull at Wyoming. And Craig, this is the moment that you've been waiting for. How is it playing out?
I think he's really throwing the ball well. The ball always came out of his hand well, but you can see his footwork has been cleaned up. Some of his timing throws that, I thought needed to improve certainly have improved today. Certainly I feel like a proud father. Coach Vegan and I, we're so proud of Josh, and it's a great day for him and a great day for the state of Wyoming.
When NFL people look at him, what is the first thing that they will see off his arm?
Well, you know what? His arm strength is unbelievable. As you can see right here, he's got great vision, and he can throw the ball deep. He's got great velocity. I said earlier, you can hear the ball, and that's something that's unique. You just don't see that very much. He's a gifted athlete. He's worked on his athleticism, and he can extend plays.
What was it like trying to reel him in at times? Because he's got some Brett Favre.
It's interesting. There's a story I had last year. We were doing a scrimmage up in Casper, and it was a bootleg, throw the ball out in the flat to the fullback, and he chose to throw a 70-yard dart down the field. And I go, what are you doing? Throw the ball to the fullback in the flat. And he goes, Favre says touchdowns first. And I said, that's wrong. Throw the ball to the fullback. So just everybody out there, all the NFL guys, you've got a little Favre in him, I can tell you that, but he can throw it a country mile.
And like Favre, he has an edge to him. How does that play out?
Well, I think that's one of his greatest attributes, that competitive edge. He's not afraid to take a risk. He'll walk the edge. He's a great team player, and he's an ultra-competitive guy. He is a hard-nosed, if he weren't a quarterback, he'd be a heck of a linebacker.
How'd you guys find him? I mean, he was coming out of Reedley College, recruited, no offers out of high school, and then I think only one other school, is that right, offered him?
Right. Well, that's a little bit of our MO here at the University of Wyoming. Brent Vegan has done a great job. We were the ones that found Carson Wentz also. And a couple of things that were similar. One of them, they were multi-sport players. They weren't the spit and polished where the dad takes them around to every quarterback camp. They played every sport. They worked hard. We dig, and we saw a guy who was a little bit underdeveloped. He had good size, but we saw a heart of a lion. And what has happened since he's got to Wyoming is he's put on about 20-some pounds.
He's like a different human being this year than last year in the championship game.
Without question. And you know what? Those are the things that are going to predict, I think, a great trajectory for him in the NFL. Once again, you can see that ball.
These poor receivers.
Their tongues are hanging out. That's right. Yeah.
Well, not only the altitude, but also the velocity. I mean, not everyone can catch these balls.
No, and you know what? That, quite frankly, is a challenge for some receivers. If you're not used to that ball coming in at that speed, it hurts their hands.
And sometimes their chest.
Yeah, if they're not good receivers.
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah.
Craig, you've spent some time with some of the NFL people. You know a lot of them. Just give us an idea, an insight into what kinds of things they're saying about Josh Allen.
Well, you know what? They all look at the tape, and they just see a guy that has tremendous physical ability. And they want to know about his personality. And you know what? They're seeing an ultra-competitive guy. Some of the questions that you guys just asked, you got to reel him back every once in a while. That's true, but I always say this: it's easier to say "whoa" than "giddy up."
Yep.
It is, and so that comes with some maturity. There's a ton of interest in him, and I understand why.
What was he like this year? I mean, he had a tough decision to make last year. He could have been a first-round draft pick and chose to come back. How did he handle that whole process, and how was he in an offense that had lost some significant players from the year earlier?
Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Carson, because Carson talked to him and said, listen, Josh, you're in a great system here. This is NFL stuff that you're doing, you're going to walk into a locker room with 35-year-old men. So stay there and learn. So he did. And what I thought was great, certainly all those guys who touched the ball from the previous year are all playing the NFL.
Right.
And this year, he was a champion. He didn't have all those weapons. He never complained. Whatever I got to do, Coach, to help us win, that's what I'm going to do. And, you know, when we played our rival, Colorado State, Mike Bobo, their head coach, said, you know what, Coach? He put that football team on his back, and he beat us. And you know what? I'm ever going to be forever indebted and love coaching him.
His background, being from a small town, playing here in a relatively small town, how do you think that plays out in a place like the Big Apple if he's in that media spotlight?
Well, you know, that's been asked by a lot of guys specifically. And, you know, I think his value systems, his mom and dad are tremendous people. His dad's a farmer. His mom used to run a restaurant in town and called the Farmer's Daughter. And he's staying true to who he is. You know, I've since he's even been back, you know, there's certainly maturity. But he understands the pitfalls that are out there. And so whatever media market he's in, he's pretty media savvy. He's light on his feet. He knows who he is. And I think he's going to handle all that stuff. You're looking at a guy that can be a face of a franchise.
We actually were talking to Jordan Palmer earlier, who's spent a lot of time with him recently, and he's with Sam Darnold as well, and they've been competing together every day. But it was interesting hearing from him saying that, you know what, I think he'd handle it just as well as Sam Darnold will, who's been at USC and dealing with the LA media. So that's a part that I didn't know about him.
Well, that's a question. You know, a lot of people are saying, okay, at this level, he wasn't heavily recruited. Why can he be projected to go as high as he could? And I can just say, you know what? We know Carson Wentz inside and out, and that market that he's in is a pretty large market as well.
Doubt.
It can be a pretty rough market.
Absolutely.
There's so many similarities as far as their personality traits from that standpoint.
Well, if you had to give him a grade to this point, Coach.
I say A+. I mean, I've seen that ball come out. I think his accuracy is, you know, he's hard on himself. But I see little things that I think he has improved on. Certainly his timing. I see that his footwork has gotten cleaned up. And that's part of the maturity. Those are things that you can coach. What you can't coach is a couple things here. Hopefully at the end you're going to see him be able to throw the ball a long, long way.
We are looking forward to that. Looking forward to the 90-yard throw. Coach Craig Ball, thank you so much for coming on the set with us. We enjoyed it.
Appreciate the time, Coach.
You bet, guys.
A ton more as the delegation moves to follow Josh Allen into the red zone. We'll flip the field in a moment when NFL Live returns with more from Josh Allen's Pro Day.